بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. Indeed, all praises due to Allah, and peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Chapter titled in Arabic Al-Zulmu Dhulumat. Al-Zulm means oppression, injustice, and it means putting the thing in where it's not supposed to be. So you place something into a place where it's not supposed to be. This is dhulm. This is the injustice. And dhulumat means darkness. This chapter titled then that this dhulm will turn into darkness. This darkness will reflect into the dunya and reflect into the hereafter. In the dunya there will be deprivation, and there will be so on and so forth. But what is meant by the chapter is dhulumat in the hereafter, where the person is in need of the light. He needs a light as well in his grave. And there are people who will be in their grave, they will be in darkness. And people who are in the grave, they will be in light. And the reflection of that dhulm will be in the barzakh also, and it will be definitely in the hereafter, Qiyamah, where the person needs the light when he crosses the bridge over the hellfire. So, first hadith is hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah. By the way, tonight is the 30th of Jumad al-Ula. Right? Did you see that?
I didn't.
Okay. Right, just document this. Problem. Hadith?
Hadeeth 483. Jabir bin Abdullah said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, avoid injustice. Injustice will be darkness on the day of rising. Beware of avarice. Avarice destroyed people before you and led them to shed each other's blood and made them judge the relations lawful that were unlawful for them.
Sorry, the last name?
And made them judge the relations lawful that were unlawful for them.
I don't understand that word. Made the
Relations lawful.
Okay, I'll translate it and you see if it's matching or not. This hadith from Jabir ibn Abdullah, which is the repetition of hadith 470. And it started, the hadith in 470 is, be aware of ash-shuh, avarice. And we said ash-shuh is stinginess plus. That is stinginess, that is you don't really let go of what is in your hand. At the same time, which is the plus, you are eager to take in what is in the possession of the hands of the people. That's called shuh. For verily it had destroyed the people before you. And this shuh that destroyed the people before us is the general shuh, which is a general phenomenon, which the Prophet ﷺ talked about when he said, يَتَقَارَبُ الزَّمَانِ, the days will be getting closer, that is, closer to the day of resurrection, so the time will be shrinking. قال وَيَقِلُّ الْعِلْمِ, and the knowledge will decrease. And then وَتَظْهَرُ الْفِتَنِ, and the tribulation will start to emerge. وَيُلْقَى الشُّحْ, and this is where the avarice or the stinginess will start to become prevalent. Becomes prevalent. And in that as well, he says, وَيَكْثُرُ الْحَرْجِ, and the harj will increase. What is harj, Messenger of Allah? He said, al-qatl, al-qatl, killing is killing. So this individual stinginess would result into a general phenomenon, and which will entail the following. That is the destruction, because it destroyed the people before us. To shed the blood, because it shed the blood the people before us. And when I said the stinginess is not just the stinginess if you think about the money. No. The stinginess of the scholars to give their knowledge. The stinginess of those people who are craftsmen or good in work to give their skill to others. So the stinginess is a disease, and it's a very bad character. The Prophet ﷺ said the worst in a man can be cowardness, and sheer niggardliness or stinginess, and that is sheer stinginess, which is shuh. And the other one, which is وَاسْتَحَلُّوا مَحَارِبَهُمْ, they made lawful what Allah made unlawful. That means to approach, which we call it incest. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So stinginess leads to incest. Did you understand that from there? No, you didn't know. So it will be lawful there, the women which are not supposed to be approaching them in a marital relation, like your sisters or auntie or your mother, waliyadu billah. And also, istahallu maharim Allah, it means that you start embarking upon making haram halal, not just the women who are haram on you too, but in general, that is to make the money which is haram to be halal, confiscating, conning, riba, and all of that. So all of that is a result from the stinginess. Now, if you look at this hadith, as I said, it's the repetition of hadith 470, but because of the addition at the beginning, fear the dhulm, ittaqu dhulm, for verily dhulm is dhulumat yawm al-qiyamah. That is, fear the dhulm, be aware of the dhulm, oppression, and remember the oppression, the opposite of it is justice. And when you have the justice, then you have salvation, as we're going to see inshallah in the following hadiths. Now, hadith number 480. A second. Go ahead.
Hadith 484. Jabir said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in the last of my community there will be punishment by deformation, storms of stone and sinking earth, and it will begin with people who commit injustice.
This hadith in its chain is unauthentic. But if we look at the first part of the hadith, which is that there will be in my ummah at the end of the time, maskh means transformation. And this transformation took place to the Jews who gained and attained the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal, and He had turned them into monkeys and pigs. Not all of them, some of them. And those who had been turned into monkeys and pigs, they did not have any offspring, so they have ceased to exist. So there is no such thing now, monkeys and pigs that related themselves to their Jews ancestors. That's not right. So there was transformation into the person, into something else, and this will take place into the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once they do embark upon what the Jews had embarked upon, from the conning, from the killings, from the changing the laws of Allah, manipulating the rules of Allah, and all of that. And then he says, maskhun wa qadfun. Qadfun means stoning, so to be stoned, just like the people of Lut, when they were committed the sodomy. They were stoned and showered with stones, so there will be stoning as well, because of as well similar issues. And the other one is khasf. Khasf, that the earth would open and they would be swallowing. They will be swallowed into the earth, and that happened as well to the nations before us. And that would be at the end of the time. But remember, this khasf and this maskh and qadf, all of that will be not to the whole of the ummah, to part of the ummah. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he called upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is, not to destroy the whole of the ummah with general crisis like famine, and not to make the destruction of this ummah upon the hands of enemies who are from the outsiders. And Allah fulfilled these supplications to the Prophet, except for the last one, and that is لَا يَجْعَلَ بَأْسَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ, and that is not to make their enmity amongst them. So when the enmity amongst the people themselves, so that the people, the Muslims, are the ones who are harmful to themselves. So when you start doing this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy you. So basically, we are immunized, we are protected by the supplication of the Prophet ﷺ, which Allah had responded to, that is, not to be destroyed with a general crisis, not to be destroyed with as well an enemy from outsiders to kill all of us. That's going to be impossible, and that is why we say the maskh, the qadf and the khasf is not general to the whole of the ummah, to part of the ummah, that like took part to the part of the Jews ummah as well, Bani Israel. This hadith is authentic up to here, which is لَيْكُنَنَّ فِي أُمَّتِي أَقْوَامٌ, and then there will be my ummah, and also في آخر الزمان, lots of hadith which is authentic. They will be khasf, maskh and qadf and khasf, and all of that we don't really have no problem to say it's authentic. But when it had the last bit, which is linked to the chapter title, that is Al-Dhulm Dhulumat, which says وَيُبْدَأُ بِأَهْلِ الْمَظَالِمِ, and it will be started with those people being oppressed, that bit is unauthentic. That bit because of Muhammad Munkadir and other, we're not going to go to the hadith issues, but because of the narrators in there is not authentic, that bit is not authentic, that they will start with the people of Mazalim, the ones who are under oppression. We're going to see, inshallah, later on what happened to those people who've been oppressed before they enter paradise and before the ones who are in the hellfire to enter hellfire. For the second, or the next one is 485, which is Al-Dhulmu Dhulumat Yawm Al-Qiyamah. It's the first part of 484, so we go to 486. You understand? Yes.
483. It's the same as 483.
Yeah, we just said 485. Oh, sorry, 484. 485, the following hadith, is part of 483. Similar. So go to 486. Yeah.
Hadith 486. Abu Sa'id said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when the believers are saved from the fire, they will be halted on a bridge between the garden and the fire. They will acquit themselves of each other by taking retaliation for the injustices that occurred between them in this world. After they have been cleansed and disciplined, they will be given permission to enter the garden. By him who holds the soul of Muhammad in his hands, each of them will know his place there better than his dwelling in this world.
This hadith also is talking about the injustice. So hadith Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when the mu'minun, they will be getting salvation from the fire. And what does that mean? What does that mean? That is when the believers goes on top of the bridge, and that bridge is over the fire. And that is the ayah, which is in Surah Maryam, verse 71, وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا. None of you, except that he's going to go over it. Even the prophets. وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا. كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. It is ordained upon your Lord. Allah ordained it upon himself that everybody has to pass over the fire. And that is the bridge, which is the sirat, which is in terms of the width is sharper or thinner than the razor. And you don't need to learn how to, go on top of things in order to go and pass on the bridge. No, will be on the day of resurrection. People will be equipped with what they're going to be passed with, resulting from their deeds in the dunya. So the more sins that you do, the more heavy luggage you're going to have, and the more difficult for you, you're going to pass over the bridge. When you pass over the bridge, some of them they will pass like the thunder. Some of them will pass like horses running. Some of them will pass like running, not with animals. Some of them will be walking. Some of them that will be dragged. That's how heavy they are. And some of them they will get away into the end of the bridge with scratches, because there are hooks into the fire that is hooking them. And Prophet ﷺ, he had actually described it like a special thorn tree, Sa'dan, which is in Saudi Arabia. That is, it's got hooks, so it will khatatif, it will hook them until they scratch. Some of them, it will hook them so badly that they will be attached to the hook and they will be what? Dropping down. ونسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يخلصنا من عذاب جهنم وأن يجعلنا من الناجين. طيب. إذا خلص المؤمنون من النار. When they have passed over that bridge. First one passed over the bridge is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, followed by the other prophets. And each prophet, he is calling upon his ummah. The Prophet of Allah, he says to his ummah, says to Allah, Allahumma sallim sallim. O Lord, save those people who are passing over the bridge. So when they pass over the bridge, at the end of the bridge, after the hellfire we pass over it, there is another bridge which is called Al-Qantara. This is where he says حُبِسُوا بِقَنْطَرَةٍ بَيْنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ. So this Qantara is after, because it says between paradise and hellfire. That means it's after hellfire. So if we explain it or demonstrate it by saying that's a bridge and the fire is underneath. After that bridge, when the fire is finished, is another little bridge. Now that little bridge is nothing to do with if you fall over it. No, but that little bridge is for cleansing, for making sure that you are pure. Because you cannot enter Jannah when there is something dirty in you, something which is not right there. Something has to be what? Taken out. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not let any person enter paradise unless he's cleansed. وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِمْ مِنْ غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ. Allah says that we have removed what is in their heart from the hatred and the grudge, and they are brothers. So you have to come inside as brothers. So here he says قَالْ فَيَتَقَصُّونَ مَظَالِمَ بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا. They will start to settle their madhalim. Madhalim is something that you've done wrong to somebody. You've done justice to somebody. Then you will start now to have retaliation. You've done this to me, you've done that to me. And the Prophet ﷺ, in another hadith, he said, لا ينبغي لأحد من أهل الجنة أن يدخل الجنة وأحد من أهل النار يطالبه بمظلمة حتى اللطمة. That no one from the people of paradise, and they are from the people of paradise, will enter paradise, and yet there is one from the people of hellfire is asking for justice from him. So that the person who's going to the hellfire and you've done wrong to him, that person will not enter paradise until that person who's going to the hellfire will ask him, I want justice as well. Even the latma, which is the slap, even the person with the hellfire, he can't really argue and he say, well, so the person who's going to the Jannah, he cannot argue and say, you're going to the hellfire anyway, what do you need from me? No, he will say, I will need that from you. Because all the people of the hellfire, they have hope. They hope to get out of the fire, they hope to decrease the fire, the heat and all of that. They have hope. And each one, they want to even sacrifice his own father and mother and everybody to what? For the sake of what? Saving himself from the fire. So the Prophet ﷺ also he said, وَلَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِ النَّارِ أَنْ يَدْخُلَ النَّارِ وَلِأَحَدٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ مَظْلَمَةٌ يُطَالِبُهُ بِهَا. And not even a single person will enter the hellfire. And he has done injustice to somebody from the people of paradise until the person who is entering paradise takes his justice from the person who's taken what? Going to the hellfire. And the one who's going to the hellfire can't just go to the person to the Jannah, what more do you need from me? I'm going to the hellfire. So still, I need justice from you. So that is why the justice will be so complete. That the Prophet of Allah, he said, حَتَّى الشَّاةِ, the sheep, which got no horns, will take justice from the sheep, which got no horns. Why did you knock me? That's how the extreme of the justice. حَتَّى إِذَا نُقُّوا وَهُذِّبُوا, until they become clean, cleansed, then they will enter paradise. Now remember that the Prophet ﷺ, in another hadith as well, that he had talked about those people who pass over the bridge. He said, verily some of them, their hasanat will be increased over the sayyinat. So they'll pass. Some of them, their hasanat and their sayyat will be equal. And that's why they'll be dragged. That's the one. Some of them, they will enter and pass by the shafa'ah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then he says, the Prophet of Allah, فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. Again, he says, by the one in whose hand is my soul. Most of this, also the Prophet of Allah, is like telling the Ash'ari these days, what are you talking about? Hands means power. Is his hands be power? Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, keep repeating it? فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِهِ. By the one whose hand is the soul of Muhammad. لَأَحَدُهُمْ. That means one of the people was in the paradise. أَدَلُّ بِمَنْزِلِهِ مِنْهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا. He knows his place in paradise more than he does know his place and his inhabitant place in dunya. The reason behind this is that the person in the grave, he is 24 hours looking at where his place is going to be. 24 hours 7. So when the person is having the trials of the grave, and he will settle either in Hufra min al-Jannah, Rawda min Riyad al-Jannah, which is in paradise, part of the paradise, or part of the hellfire. So he will be having the mattress from the paradise, the clothes from the paradise, and a window which would lead to where he is in paradise. That's why he knows where he is. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, not a single person. Shaykhi, can you just make this a bit lower? We can't. All right. Really loud and making very loud, mashallah. Right. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no one will enter paradise, or no one from the people of paradise will enter paradise until he sees his seat in the hellfire. If he was to be very bad. Why? To make him even extra thankful to Allah. No one will enter paradise, and he's from the people of paradise, until he sees his seat in the hellfire, if he's to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. Why? To increase thankful to Allah. So he would say, oh, alhamdulillah, I was not disobedient to Allah. I would have been in that seat of the hellfire. Same thing for the people of the hellfire. No one will enter the fire from the people of hellfire until he sees his seat in paradise, if he to be obedient to Allah. Why? To make him more grief, more sorrow. He would have said, look, what's going to happen to me? I could have been in paradise if I was obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, تفضل.
Hadeeth 487. Abu Hurairah said, the Prophet ﷺ said, beware of injustice. Injustice will be darkness on the day of rising. Beware of coarseness. Allah does not love those who are coarse and foul-mouthed. Beware of avarice, for it led those before you so that they cut off their relatives. It called them, and they made lawful relations that were unlawful.
Okay, that is the repetition of the same hadith that we have mentioned just at the beginning. So go to 489.
88.
You just done for 88. You have just done
487.
Oh, which is the same thing, sorry. You've done 487,
No.
which is, okay, it's the same thing and similar one, but there is the addition of al-fahish wal-mutafahish. What you should be aware from the fahish is the one you addition, isn't it? Apart from that, everything is the same. So it is to keep away from the fuhsh. The fuhsh means everything which is bad. Al-mutafahish is the one who is doing it. So everything evil and everything the one who is doing evil. Fahish is a word that would encompass all things which are evil, and is always directed to the people who makes fornication. Right, so 487 and 488 also they are the same. So we go to 489, please. Yeah, Hassan.
489. Abu Duha said, Mashruk al-Shutayr bin Shakal met in the mosque.
Who's that? Again?
Masruk al-Shutayr bin Shakal.
No, they met in two. Masruq and is supposed to be.
Oh, and sorry.
طيب.
489. Abu Duha said, Masruk and Shutayr bin Shakal met in the mosque. The people sitting in circles in the mosque moved towards him. Masruk said, I can only think that these people are gathering around us in order to hear good from us. So you relate from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, I will confirm you, or I will relate from Abdullah, and you confirm me. Shutayr said, Abu Aisha, relate. Masruk said, did you hear Abdullah say, the eyes commit fornication, the hands commit fornication, the feet commit fornication, and then the genitals either confirm or deny that? He said, yes, I heard it. Masruk said, did you hear Abdullah say, there is no verse in the Quran more comprehensive in describing both the halal and the haram, and the command and the prohibition than this verse? Translated of which says, Allah,
إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان. You having the verse?
it's not in Arabic.
إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى. نعم.
Translated which means Allah commands justice, good deeds, and gives to relatives. He said, yes, I did hear that. Masruq said, did you hear Abdullah say, there is no verse in the Quran swifter to bring relief than his words?
وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا.
Whoever fears Allah, He will make a way out for him. He said,
It's a bit loud.
oh, okay, he said, yes, I heard that. Masruq said, did you hear Abdullah say, there is no verse in the Quran stronger in entrusting things to Allah than his words? Slaves.
يا عبادي قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. نعم.
My slaves who have been extravagant against yourselves, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. He said, yes, I heard that.
Be with me with Hassan when I ask for translation for everyone, okay? Just on this hadith. Just be on the hadith. This hadith is a great hadith, talks about two great followers, and they are with them sharing what their teacher was saying. First of all, we'll talk about Masruq. Masruq is one of the people who was born at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but he did not see the Messenger of Allah, so he is not a companion. Basically, he is one of the Mukhadramin, from the followers, but he was as well caught from the time of the Prophet of Allah, but he did not see the Messenger of Allah, so he's not a companion. Masruq, his kunya is Abu Aisha. He's been praised by so many scholars, by Imam Ahmad and others. And they said that he is one of the best of the people that he had taken from his teacher Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Masruq means stolen. And why he was named like this? It was said that when he was little, he was stolen and that he was returned back. Because of that name Masruq was being given to him. So his father is Al-Adab, and he had embraced Islam also. And we come now to the other one, which is Shutayr ibn Shakil. Shutayr ibn Shakil is also from the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, but he's not as knowledgeable or not as close to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or a student to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud like Masruq. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is a companion who could be a student of Umar al-Khattab. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is one of the great reciters. From the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if Abdullah ibn Mas'ud says to you something, then believe him. He had the following students: Alqamah, well known, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, Al-Aswad, Ubaidah, Masruq, and Shutayr ibn Shakil, all of them the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. Shutayr, his kunya is Abu Isa. He had died in the era of Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Now it says the hadith there that fi al-masjid, we don't know which masjid it is, they were coming to the masjid and the circles which were in the masjid, as soon as they saw them, they came to them. Does it say that in there? What does it say? From the beginning.
The people sitting in circles. The people sitting in circles in the mosque moved towards them.
Okay, so we find here that the people who are in circles, like they were some circle or teaching, but the teacher is not as great as the other teacher, because those are followers, and great followers. So that teacher, as soon as he sees the greater teachers, is supposed to be what? Finishing up. So if I teach now and I find, for example, one of the great sheikhs, should I talk? I'm not going to talk. I said, Sheikh, come here and teach. I can't talk. That's the etiquette. But if somebody, he doesn't know what he's saying, what comes out of his mouth, and then he starts talking to the people, that's disaster. That's a disaster. That's what we're having these days, is that the people who have little bit of knowledge, little bit of medicine, little bit of education, so this person who is a half doctor, he gives you a medicine, he kills you. Because he's not a full doctor. The person who's got a bit of knowledge, he gives you knowledge, but he's not full knowledge, he kills you. Because he's not knowledgeable. So that's what we're having these days. أَخْوَفُ مَا أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمَ الْأَئِمَّةُ الْمُضِلُّونَ. So soon as the Shutayr ibn Shakil and Masruq Abu Aisha came to the masjid, all the circles were there, stopped. And all of them, تَقَوَّضُوا إِلَيْهِمَا. They went to these two guys because they are students of companions, well known. This is to show you how eager they are to learn from the greater knowledgeable people, from the greater scholars. And that's what it should be. I remember that as soon as we finished the Jumu'ah khutbah in one of the masajid in Amman, and I used to go all the way to that place, to that khutbah, not because of the khatib, and the khatib is a sheikh, and he is a scholar. But I used to go not for him, for the Sheikh Al-Albani, because I used to go to that particular masjid. So as soon as the khutbah is finished, okay, you'll find us, all of us like bees behind the queen. You know the bees behind the queen? Zzz. So we escort the Sheikh to the car, all of us. And each person is eager to have a place either in the car. If you can't have a place in the car, then top of the car. I'm not joking, top of the car. And just to hear a word from the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi. And you know the scene, it will grab your heart, because this is the knowledge. The people want to be in the knowledge, and when the people say, why are these people doing this to that? They don't know. Some of them, they don't know who's the scholar, Shaykh Al-Albani. Like one of the people who had, mashallah, come to the Da'wat al-Haqq on the Salafiyah. He was going with some people doing the so-called khuruj and all of that. He said that when I went to Saudi Arabia, and some of the students of knowledge there, he said, where are you from? We said, from Jordan. He said, how is Shaykh Al-Albani? So when we asked about Shaykh Al-Albani, we don't know anything about the Shaykh Al-Albani. He lives in our own country, but we don't know him. Shame upon us. A scholar who's around, shame upon a da'wah that does not introduce the scholars to their followers. Shame. Shame upon a da'wah that does not introduce the scholar who's there in their country about that scholar. But there is a reason why, because the scholars, he will not really have wishy-washy. If you see something wrong, he will say this is something wrong. Jama'ah is not right, he will say this Jama'ah is not right. He will not have some sort of, you give me money and I'll be quiet. It doesn't work like that. So, rahmatullahi alayhi, the Shaykh, I used to go there just because of him. As for the talk, we couldn't really benefit from that talk, but we were just going for it. As soon as the Shaykh died, I never went to the masjid. I never went to the masjid at all. That masjid, I don't want the masjid. I want to just everybody, and the masjid was empty basically. So the Shaykh Al-Albani used to go there, and after the Shaykh, we go to the car, and then the Shaykh would be asked, and he will give us about 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour. And there was a brother who used to work with the Shaykh Al-Albani, and used to jump in the back of the car, and he's had a recorder, a little one. It's not like the one which is Abu Layla, the one main recorder with very good ones. You know, a small recorder. So he grabbed the opportunity and he had started to record those fatawa, and he called them, it's in their internet, fatawa sayyara, the fatawa of the car, because it's in the car. Shaykh Hussein in the car, rahmatullahi alayhi. Coming back, those two, now look at how they are humble with one another. So he's saying straight away, Abu Aisha, which is Masruq, to his scholar friend, you could say, that I could see that these people are coming to us to learn from us. لِيَسْتَمِعُ مِنَّا. What learn from us? What? Khayr, knowledge. Brothers, you have to seek knowledge. Every morning there are 3 tasks upon you, which is, O Lord, I ask you, ilman nafi', beneficial knowledge, wa rizqan wasi'a, and provision, that's what you want, and wa amalan mutaqabbala, which is a righteous deed. Those are the 3 things. Every day you have 3 tasks: knowledge, rizq, and righteous good deeds. So the knowledge, it will purify you, it will make you have a good intention. That's what you want. So he said that these people are after us, they want good knowledge from us. Either you start to speak from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, their teacher, what he said, and then I will say, yes, confirmed, I've heard it. Or you let me, okay, I will talk about Abdullah and then you confirm what I say. Right. First of all, we learn from this the humbleness of Masruq. Masruq took an initiative. He said, we should teach these people. They're coming to us. Knowledge. And he said, you start talking. And then I will confirm. And that's humbleness. Higher student knowledge, he's telling the one who was less than him, you start to speak and I will confirm. Or I will start to speak if you wish, and you confirm. So it shows as well the great respect of Shutayr. He said to Masruq, no, you, Abu Aisha, start. And he called him with his kunya. And this is the best way to call a person with his kunya. Oh, Abu Aisha, you start to talk and I will what? Confirm. Why is this happening? Why do one person to start talking and the other one to confirm? There is two reasons. Well, reason number one, this is a very good way of teaching the knowledge. If you have two scholars, mashallah, one is saying and the sheikh, mashallah, barakallah, yes, correct. It's a double confirmation. Number two, those audience are listening to the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud from two channels, from two narrators. So narrator number one from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, from Shutayr, and narrator number two from Masruq. So you got two channels leading to Abdullah. So those are the audience that would say, Haddathana Shutayr. Haddathana Shutayr and Masruq. So it's confirmed now. This knowledge is from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So this is a good way of teaching the knowledge. He said, هل سمعت عبد الله يقول, didn't you hear? So he's talking in front of the people now. That is Masruq. Didn't you hear Abdullah what he said? That is Al-Aynani Yazniyan. Eyes commits fornication. If there's a difference between my translation and the translation there, please tell me. وَالْيَدَانِ يَزْنِيَانِ, and the hands commit fornication. وَالرِّجْلَانِ يَزْنِيَانِ, and the feet commit fornication. وَالْفَرْجُ يُصَدِّقُ ذَلِكَ أَوْ يُكَذِّبُ, and the genitals either will confirm or belie it. So he said, yes, I confirm, I have heard it. أنا سمعت, I have heard it. So this is from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, but also it was a hadith which is marfu' ila the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said this hadith, and the narrator of that hadith also from them is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, which is the eyes, they commit zina. Eyes commit zina by looking at the haram. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Aynan aslu zina al-farj. The Aynan is the one which is the root of later on wal-fahisha. Prophet ﷺ, he said, when he was asked about the sudden look. Sudden look, that means there's a woman there, you want to have a look, and he said, Isrif basarak, take it away. And he said to his cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, which is to warn him against the fitna of following an eye with an eye. So he said, لا تتبع النظرة النظرة. Don't follow the look with another look. So you look and you look again. That's not right, because the النظرة سهم من سهام الشيطان. The look is an arrow from the arrows of shaitan. It penetrates. And the eyes, when it have a look into the eyes, what happens in the heart? Straight away, this arrow will, and then ibtisam, a smile, straight away. And then salam alaikum. And then kalam, talk. And then rendezvous, an appointment, and then God knows what's going to happen. So the poets, it said, نظرة فابتسامة فسلام فكلام فموعد فلقاء. And this is, wallahi, absolutely, it's like a revelation. It is true. Starts with one look and ended up with fornication. So that is what you have to be careful. One look is magic. Just you have to look into the eyes into the eyes. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, to the Ansar, he said, go and look at her. And he looked, Mughira ibn Shu'bah, he married in his lifetime 70 women. Radiallahu anhu. And one of those women he had married, he said, when I went to go and ask, because he was rich, mashallah, So he could afford it. So he did not marry 70 altogether. He's not allowed more than 4. And he went to another woman and he asked for her hand. And she was young. So he went to the Prophet of Allah. The Prophet said, did you look into her eyes? انظر إليها فإنه أحرى أن يقدم بينكما. Look into her eyes. For verily, maybe that love will come into it. Just from one look. Look into her eyes. And maybe Allah will put the affections, the love. So he went back to ask for her hand. He said, before I marry her, I want to look at her, because the Prophet said, look at her. So the father and the mother, they were really sort of paranoid here. And the girl is inside. She said, are you saying the truth that the Prophet of Allah is going to look at me? If it is, then come and look. But if he did not say that, don't look. So he said, I looked into her and I married 70 women. None of them had the same love I had to that woman because of that look. None of those women had the same love like that woman. Yes, she penetrated my heart. Just the look into the eyes. So this is halal look. This is halal look. Now coming back to the hadith. قال واليدان تزنيان. And the hands, they would as well fornicate. Fornication of the hands is actually in walking to the fahisha. The hands goes to the fahisha. That means you're touching. And the feet and the legs, or the feet, or the legs are also fornicating. That means you go to the haram. So الرجلان يزنيان واليدان تزنيان. واليدان يزنيان, the hands will touch and the feet will go to the haram. والفرج يصدق ذلك ويكذب. And the genitals, meaning the private part of the person, is the one to confirm, did you go along with what your hands had done? Did you go along with what your feet had done? So he said, yes, I have heard. So they have believed one or confirmed one another. Then coming to the second one. Did you hear Abdullah saying that there is not a single ayah in the Quran which more of encompassing the halal and the haram and the command and the prohibition than this ayah? Is that correct? Inna Allah, verily Allah, ya'muru bil adl, commands with the adl, wal ihsan, and ihsan, we will explain inshallah, wa ita'i bil qurba, and to be charitable to the ones who are poor from the relatives. Any halal is within and encompassed through the justice and through the ihsan and through being charitable to those who are poor from your relatives. And any haram is under the fahsha wal munkar wal baghi, because the rest of the verse. So Al-Imam Al-Qurtubi, regarding this verse, he said, verily, Ibn Al-Arabi had said, Al-Adlu, the justice, is between, number one, the person and his Lord. And the way it is that the person will give precedence to Allah's commands over his whims and desires. That's the justice between the person and his Lord. He will give priority to Allah's requirements, Allah's commands, by obeying Him and keeping away from what He had prohibited over his whims and desires. That's the justice of the person between him and his Lord. And then the justice between himself and himself is that the person, he would strive to make sure that it will keep away from anything that will destroy it, from the lust and the whims and the desires, and from the greediness and all of those bad things. And the justice, which is the third one, is between the person and the other creation, whether it is human being or animals or trees, because you are a governor, Khalifa, and you're supposed to use these things according to what Allah told you to use. So you'll be just towards the animal. When you slaughter the sheep, you will be merciful, and you'll be doing it according to the code the Prophet ﷺ taught us. And you'll be merciful as well, you'll be just as well to the trees. You will not cut the trees for no reason. You'll be just to the human being, which is the most important issue. So you will not have any grudge or envy towards your brothers, and also to be patient on everything that has been affected you or struck you from the afflictions or from the tribulations. Okay, and also to keep away from all injustice. So all of that is from the justice between you and other creatures. So this is a collective words and concise, I could say, when they say, for example, the adl is the tawheed, is monotheism. And it's been attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. So the adl is actually the tawheed, the monotheism itself. As for the ihsan, إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان. Al-ihsan is to perfect that type of worship. Perfection of the worship to the extent that you are seeing Allah. And if you don't see Him, He sees you. That's the ihsan. So the perfection is that you see that what you're doing and you imagine that Allah is looking at you. So when you imagine that the Creator is looking at you, you will perfect what you're doing. If you don't see Him, He sees you. That's the ihsan. So every time you do something from the worship, you are having the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the presence of His greatness, which will motivate you to start and keep upon doing those righteous deeds. So the ihsan is to worship Allah just like you see Him. If you don't see Him, He sees you. And this will include also in it the sincerity in tawheed, and also being tolerant and forgiving to the people, and all of that things which are going to lead you inshallah to enter paradise. Then he says وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, and to be charitable, or to give charity, give money to those who are poor from your relatives. وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقًّا, Allah says, and give the ones in relationship from the womb his right. His right is because الْأَقْرَبُونَ أَوْلَى بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. If you have money to give, one poor is a relative and one poor is not relative. The one who's relative, he has the priority to give him. Now in this ayah we could see that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he has knowledge regarding the ayat, because he said there is no ayah that would encompass al-halal wal-haram more than this ayah in the Quran. That means he had recited the whole of the Quran, studied the whole of the Quran to come up with such a conclusion. There is no ayah would encompass the whole of halal haram more than this ayah. So he said, yes, I've heard it and I confirm. Third one, he said, didn't you hear Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, there is not a single ayah in the Quran which is more swift into easing the situation than the saying, or than the verse, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. He who does have fear and piety and taqwa is lots of words to describe it, consciousness from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and Allah will make him a way through. Way through, that means calamities. وَيَرْزُقُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And the continuation of the verse, Allah will provide him from sources he never thought of. So He will save him from every single calamity. That if this person has fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether in this dunya or the akhirah, He will save him from the doubtful matters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His taqwa. So he said, yes, I confirm, I heard it from Abdullah. The last one, did you hear Abdullah what he said regarding the there's nothing in the Quran, a verse which is stronger in putting the trust, or referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to putting the trust in every matter to Allah Azza wa Jal. Is that the one?
There is no verse in the Quran stronger in entrusting things to Allah.
Yeah, entrusting things to Allah. So he said, the ayah, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. This ayah from Surah Al-Zumar, that is, O my slaves, the ones who had أَسْرَفُوا عَلى أَنفُسِهِمْ, they made things wrong. Israf, it is to go overboard. So when a person goes overboard regarding his actions, that means he is doing a sin. So he says that those people who are sinning, أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. That's a continuation in the verse. Do not feel in despair from the mercy of Allah. إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. Verily Allah forgives all the sins. All the sins, even including shirk. All the sins, even including shirk. Allah will forgive those sins. How does this ayah goes along with the other ayah in Surah An-Nisa? إن الله لا يغفر وأن يشرك به. Allah does not forgive any person committing shirk. Does this ayah goes against the ayah? Is a different understanding? Allah does not forgive any person who makes shirk. Where this ayah says Allah will forgive all the sins. إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. That is the second ayah, which is the one which is we're having now. Allah will forgive all the sins when the person repents from the shirk. But the other ayah, which says that Allah will not forgive the shirk, but He will forgive anything below that, it means if you did not what? Repent. If you repented to Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will forgive your sins. التائب من ذنبه كمن لا ذنب له. The one who repents from his sins is like he hasn't sinned. So there is no sort of these two verses, they synchronize according to the interpretation of theirs. In this hadith or this athar, we find that it is the importance of making sure, that we are linked to the trace of the Salaf. We want to know what the Salaf had said and what the companions of the Prophet of Allah had said. So those people who came to listen to what these two scholars had heard from the companions. And those companions, of course, are linked to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet is linked to Allah Azza wa Jal. And also, in the hadith, we could see that the importance of making sure that the knowledge is being confirmed. So here, he told him to confirm what I said, in order that as also to make more, the haqq is more confirmed in the hearts of the people. So two people are saying, and also shows how sound memory these guys are. MashaAllah, to the word, to the letter. They're memorizing the words of the teacher. Also, they have chosen a collective hadith they heard from Abdullah Mas'ud. So they chosen collective or concise sort of words from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And those, if you look at this hadith, from the beginning to the end, what Masruq, Abu Aisha had chosen, you could see that he chosen number one, which is to do that with the hands, the eyes, the feet are fornicating. Yes? How the fornication of the eyes, how the fornication of the hands, how the fornication of the what? Of the feet. And the private part confirms that or belies it. So, that is linked to the purification of the soul. So the first admonishing of that is the purification of the soul. Purification of the limbs. Purification of the heart. All of that to do with the hands, the eyes, and the legs. Secondly, then he came up with this ayah which talks about the halal and the haram, which is to do with commands and prohibition. And this is as well to do with what you're supposed to do in your deen and what you're supposed to avoid. Then they made the third one, which is the taqwa. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. That is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you fear Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will remove all these calamities that you've got. And then he said as well in that ayah that the rizq is upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody else. And Allah Azza will give you the rizq from sources you never thought of. And finally, which is the last one, which is that the rahmatullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mercy of Allah, had it encompassed every sin. Allah will forgive every sin. يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. Because He accepts a repentance of the person when he repents. And that is to show you that putting the entrusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By this we have finished this hadith, and we've got to go to hadith 490, which is a long hadith. God help you with that. No? We'll stop. Okay. Abu Maryam, the head of the state. We don't want to make a coup against him. Listen. Okay, the long hadith is actually, it takes me about a whole class. Maybe the whole class next 2 weeks' time is going to be about this hadith. This hadith 490 one of the hadiths which are jawami'. Jawami' means concise, plus is so mighty that Abu Idris al-Khawlani used to go on his knees every time he recites this hadith. And it's a hadith Qudsi, so I will start with saying before I give the question and answer. This hadith Qudsi is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking from his Lord Azza wa Jal. And the scholars have differed regarding the hadith al-Qudsi. They differed what to interpret it and what it is. So we're going to talk about that inshallah in 2 weeks' time. The difference between the hadith al-Qudsi and the normal hadith. Hadith al-Qudsi starts with Allah said. Now, how many questions, please? Fadl Ahmed.
Two students of Ibn Abbas, you said there was 2 reasons. Could you just say what were the 2 reasons?
Ibn Abbas or Abdullah Mas'ud?
Did I say Ibn Abbas? Ibn Mas'ud.
What is the reason for one?
For teaching in this way. You said one was a good...
I said teaching in this way, that is number 1 to confirm the haqq in the hearts of the people, number 2 to make the audience listen to this hadith from 2 channels, from 2 ways. Now, okay, Abu Maryam, where's the questions? Where's the, I can't see you, you're putting your hand behind this.
Question is about the verse in Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bih. Does that include a person who committed minor shirk and didn't repent for it? Would Allah forgive that?
In Allah la yaghfiru. First of all, any sin that you repent from it is being forgiven, regardless of whether major or minor. You're talking about that a minor shirk which is not being repented. That's a difference amongst the scholars. The majority of the scholars, they said it will be forgiven. And Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he says it will not be forgiven. That means you have to be punished for it. But he does not say that you are a kafir. Major shirk, kufr, akbar. Minor shirk is minor shirk. But it will not be under the mashia of Allah Azza wa Jal. If he wishes, he will what? Overlook it. No, it will be what? Punishable. That's according to Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. But the Jumhur, the scholar, they said even the minor shirk is below the major shirk. So inna Allah la yaghfiru yushraka bih, that means the major shirk. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Jazakallah. Tfaddal ya Altan.
You find a lot of people, they say to make dua for me, or for example you're traveling, say you're a traveller, make dua for me. Is this something that's praiseworthy?
If somebody says to you, make a dua for me, and in a general ground, is no problem. But if the people took it as an etiquette, every time for example, please make a dua for me. Brother, make dua for me. Brother, what's wrong? You ask him. Something happened? First thing you ask him is, something wrong? Yeah? So, make dua for me because you've got something that happened and you're asking people to make dua. But every time you see a person, Assalamu alaikum, make dua for me. That's what is happening. That's what you're asking about. That's not right. That's not from the Sunnah. We don't really document or read from the Sunnah for the companions to do that. رضي الله عنهم وارضاهم. نعم. تفضل.
Can I ask a question outside of the topic? Some narration came to me from one of my family members. They're saying that after you divorce a woman, for the third divorce, they can say some certain kalam and then she automatically comes back to the husband. Where's the adila for this sort of statement?
Ask him. So.
After this all, where you say this statement, but you have no proof to say these things.
I don't know. This is nonsense for me, so I can't bring proof for nonsense. I don't know what is this word. Abracadabraca or open sesame. I don't know what is this word. For the person who has divorced his wife 3 times, 3 times mean 3 occasions. Not 3 times like the divorce. That is according to the correct opinion. She's divorced once, as Abdullah ibn Abbas. But according to the Hanafi, divorce, she's finished. She cannot go back to him until she marries somebody else and that person divorces her or that person dies. And that is why those people who are from the other madhabs, like for example the Deobandis, or they are Brelwis, different religion as well, when they have this problem, they come to us. And they came to me to solve a problem because that guy, he had written word divorce, divorce, divorce on a piece of paper. So he came, I said to them, he's a relative, the relative is from us. Why are they coming to me? It's because we're saying that divorce, divorce, divorce is one, isn't it? I'm pretty sure they went to their sheikh and he said to them, "Khalas, you're finished." And that was true. So I said, we don't really work like this. You just, you jump from fatwa to a fatwa which is suitable to what you like. That's not right. So if you said to your wife, divorce to the power 1000, still one divorce. What is divorce? It's come to 3 divorce. You divorce her, and then after that, you either finish the iddah and remarry her again with 2 witnesses, and then you divorce her again, or within her iddah, you take her back, and then after that you divorce her again. Okay? But you don't really divorce in the same setting. Divorce, divorce, divorce. Okay, even if you got divorce, go to the toilet, divorce, still one. Because you have to finish her iddah, to take her back. Do you understand? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. You teach me those words, inshallah. The date?
Arabic date.
Yes. No, we document the classes with dates, that's all. So I said that tonight is the 30th, and I'm really impressed that it says 30th there. So it's actually had changed from because today is the 29th. But after Maghrib it became the 30th. Is that right, inshallah? The clock is a super clock. MashaAllah, 30th. Yes. Tonight is the 30th. Tomorrow, a day in terms of light, still the 30th. Nah. Fadal.
It's outside the topic you were saying. How do I break my salah if I started salah and ikama is done? Like I intend to pray 2 rakah, but the ikama started. Then how do I break my salah?
Right. So the person he's asking regarding, I'm praying a voluntary prayer. A voluntary prayer. And the iqamah for the obligatory prayer had started. What should I do in this case? If this person, he is in his prayer, let's say in the 2nd rak'ah, in the tashahhud, and he knows from himself that he will be finishing his prayer before the Imam says Allahu Akbar Takbirat al-Ihram. Because he knows that the Imam, he is mashallah person, he would look at the lines, make sure that the feet with the feet, shoulder with the shoulder, that takes him, so much time that you could finish a whole rak'ah, not even salutation. Then you continue your prayer and you make salutation, and then after that you join the people, you'll be ready for Takbirat al-Ihram. The most important thing is Takbirat al-Ihram. But if you're Imam, like most of the Imams these days, unfortunately, they're taking the Imam it's just to be a job. It's a salary at the end of the month. Where, Stawu, Allahu Akbar. Stawu. Well, people must, if you look at the rows, are not mustawi. If you remove those lines from here, do you think the row will be stawi? If you remove those lines, do you think the people will be straight line? No way. They will be like this. Watch them in the Salat al-Eid when they go out in the parks. In the park when they have Salat al-Eid, watch them what they do. Oh, because they haven't been trained in the masjid. So they're like twisted roads. That's their rows. So if you know him like this, he doesn't do that, then I would say, break your prayer. And you're asking me how to break the prayer, I'm going to get to it. But I'm just saying to you, break your prayer because you want to be Takbirat al-Ihram there, ready. Now that is if you're praying voluntary. And the hadith says, إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَةِ. If the prayer iqamah is on, there is no prayer except for the maktuba. Maktuba means the obligatory. But let's say that you are praying obligatory. You come to the masjid of Salat al-Asr, and you're doing your dhuhr because you have missed it for some reason. Maybe you're combining because you're a traveler, maybe you forgot the whole of the time. So you're doing your dhuhr before the start of the Asr. and the iqama is on. Okay? What should I do? First of all, the scholars had differed regarding the voluntary and regarding as well the obligatory. But their difference regarding cutting off the prayer when it's obligatory is much more difference regarding the breaking of the prayer when they are voluntary. Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw a man in the Fajr prayer making takbir al-ihram and the iqama is on. So he pulled him and he said, Subha arba, are you trying to break the Fajr, to make the Fajr prayer instead of 2, make it 4? Subha arba. So how did he break his prayer? He made takbir al-ihram. How did he make a prayer? He just pulled him. So there is no such thing that you're to break the prayer, you make salutation unless you are in the position for salutation, which is after tashahhud. But in your ruku', you say like this, in your ruku'. That's what the people do. That's what the people do.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah. So what about in the sujood as well? I mean, I don't understand that. So that is salutation. So be in the position after the tashahhud. There's no such thing that when you are reading Fatiha, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum. That's not right. Prophet ﷺ, he pulled him. So he makes salutation, we need a proof for that. We don't have a proof. So he just dragged him and he made the Fajr prayer. Coming to the answer of the obligatory prayer, I have looked into that very carefully, and I would say the following, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he said this hadith, the maktuba is not just the obligatory that the prayer iqama was made for. Because you need to unify everybody. So imagine that we are at the moment praying, making iqama, and somebody praying obligatory at the back of the masjid. Another person praying obligatory at the back of the masjid. Third one praying obligatory at the masjid. And they did not break off their prayer. And some people came behind the imam and some started praying here and there and there. Is that a healthy sort of situation? Person coming inside, you see, imam with some people praying, and those people praying on their own. What are they? They could be Shia, Rafida. They could be spies. They could be working for dispatches program. You don't know. So it comes to the mind of the people. And Islam came to kill the rumors. So it's basically you just stop your prayer and you do that prayer. Your dhuhr becomes the asr. So you're praying behind the imam the asr, but with the intention of the what? Of the dhuhr. You finish and then you do the asr after that. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And as I said, there is lots of difference among the scholars. We have a hadith from Buhayna, lots of hadith for that. But that's what I have as regarding the answer for this question. Jazakallah khair for that. Now, do you have any other questions? Fadali Hassan.
So it's related to salah as well. If you do sajda sahw afterwards, like we're doing extra in the salah, and you do the taslim and you want to do the 2 after, do you finish that with a taslim as well, or?
Any salutation, prostrations of forgetfulness, which is sujood as-sahw, after the salutation, it has to have salutation. But there's some madhab of the Hanafi, they do another tashahhud. There's a madhab of the Hanafi, if you made a forget as well, they break the whole prayer, they have to repeat it again. Okay, so there's 2 madhab in the madhab. But we say, in the correct opinion, the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, is that when you make the 2 sajda, you make another salutation. Now, making the 2 sajda before or after, we say to the people, don't bother. Whether you make it before or make it after, inshallah, would be acceptable. If you want to hit the target and follow the sunnah, Prophet of Allah, he made it the 2 sajda before the salutation in 2 cases, and the rest of the cases, all of them after. First case is that when he misses his tashahhud, the middle one. So if he stood up fully, okay, and he forgot to make the middle tashahhud, he may not go down. He finished, and before the salutation, he make 2 sajda. But if he just got up and he's halfway, 2/3 of the way, and he remembered, he sits down and there is no 2 sajda. The second position is when the person he is now at the moment forgot. How many rak'ah did he do? So he's saying, is this my 3rd rak'ah? Or is it my 2nd rak'ah? He's sure he's done first. But he's not sure if he's done the 2nd. So is it his 3rd or his 2nd? 2nd or 3rd, 2nd or 3rd, 2nd or 3rd. He cannot come up to a conclusion. So he would build up upon the what? The minimum. What is the minimum? Was sure of 1 rak'ah. So he will build upon what he is sure of. And that is the least of the 2 numbers. The less of the 2 numbers. which is 1 rak'ah. I've done 1 rak'ah, so this is my second. Then he will do 2 sajda before salutation. So let's just now ask the brothers to tell me what is supposed to be done regarding 2 sajda before or after. So I'm asking now, a person, he had done the 4 rak'ah of the Asr, he made 2 rak'ah and then salutation. After the salutation, I've done only 2 rak'ah. So he got up, made 2 rak'ah. Does he do 2 sajda or not? Does he do 2 sajda or not? First question. Yes, he must. Before or after? According to the Sunnah. Before or after?
After.
I said it's only before in 2 occasions. But one, I'll repeat them. If you forgot the middle tashahhud, stood up. Second one, if you don't know how many rak'ahs you have prayed, and you don't know, you could not arrive to the conclusion. I don't know. But this one, you arrived to the conclusion or not?
Yes.
You're 100%, you made 2. So you make them where? After. This person is praying for rak'ah of the Asr or Dhuhr. He is now into the 3rd rak'ah, but he doesn't know. Is it the 2nd or the 3rd? 2nd or the 3rd, 2nd or the 3rd, 2nd or the 3rd. Hang on a second. I read in the Fatiha in the first one, and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And he's in his mind now. قُلْ أَعُوذُ رَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. I read in the 2nd rak'ah. This is 100% the 3rd rak'ah. First question, does he do such sujood sahw or he doesn't? He's sure he's done it correctly. He's 100%. Does he do sajda or not? No. Yes. Because of that doubt. Does he do it after or before? After. I'm going to repeat again what is before. What is before is only when you can't come to conclusions. Remember that. I came up to conclusion. Alright? So this is only, but I'm not going to confuse you. Just do it before or after. So that's why it's simple for you. Alright? But I said to what we heard this now.
Why do you say do it before or after? It doesn't matter.
This is matter because the issues regarding the scholars, they said that we have too many ahadith where the Prophet ﷺ did not tell the companions, you should do this, you should do that. He made 2 sajda, and the companions never asked the Prophet ﷺ where we should do the 2 sajda. So it was all of it ijtihad from the scholars. They looked at the ahadith of the Prophet of Allah. When does he do it before? When does he do it after? So they came up to this conclusion. But the companions never came to any conclusion to go and ask the Prophet of Allah, when is it after or before? And that is why they said, no problem. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك